providing information to keep them safe. These are difficult times, these are volatile times, yet the EWRC team shows up every crisis with dedication. So thank you so much for your tireless work. Je vais commencer par remercier sincèrement notre équipe d'Affaires mondiales Canada au Centre de surveillance et d'intervention d'urgence. Ils travaillent jour et nuit pour aider les Canadiens dans la région et leur fournir l'information dont nous disposons pour les garder en sécurité. Merci beaucoup. Of the 106,000 Canadians in the region, 2,035 have contacted Global Affairs Canada for assistance with egress. I want to speak directly now to Canadians in the Middle East and the Gulf region. Your government is with you. We are working hard for you, and we are arranging options for you to leave the region. I'm here today to explain what those options are. Your safety and your well-being are our top priority. Our government has developed options for Canadians seeking to leave the region. These options are threefold. 1, a limited number of chartered flights. 2, block booking of seats on commercial flights. 3, ground transportation services, certain cases where it is safe to do so. This morning, for example, we ensured that 75 people departed from Beirut on a commercial flight with seats that we reserved. Another 200 seats have been reserved over the next 3 days for people who wish to leave Beirut. As you can see behind me, more than 100,000 people across 15 affected countries have registered with Global Affairs in order to receive the most up-to-date information pertaining to the country they are in. Ce matin, par exemple, 75 Canadiens ont pu quitter Beyrouth sur un vol commercial avec des sièges réservés par le gouvernement pour les Canadiens. Une autre 200 sièges ont été réservés pour les 3 prochains jours. As of this morning, more than 2,000 people requested the government assistance to leave the region. We send information about assistance being offered to registered Canadians directly. I will now summarize the government's response in the 5 countries with the most request for assistance from Canadians, comprising almost 85% of all requests. These countries are United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Lebanon, Israel, and Iran. Starting first with the UAE. For the UAE, as of this morning, 1,171 Canadians have requested assistance in leaving out of a total of nearly 30,000 registered Canadians in the UAE. Airspace in the UAE is only partially open, and limited commercial flights are available. This afternoon, I directed my officials to enter into contracts to charter flights for Canadians. This charter is contingent upon receiving the necessary approvals from the government of the UAE to use their airspace, which we have already requested, and I personally am involved in these requests at a diplomatic level. Flights will be available on a cost recovery basis to Canadians, and the number of flights will be tailored to meet demand. Moving now to block bookings. We are also working with the airlines to block book seats on commercial flights that would be reserved for Canadians to confirm and book themselves. Les vols seront offerts aux Canadiens sur une base de recouvrement des coûts et le nombre de vols sera ajusté selon la demande. Nous travaillons aussi avec les compagnies aériennes pour réserver des blocs de siège sur des vols commerciaux qui seront réservés aux Canadiens pour qu'ils puissent les confirmer et les réserver eux-mêmes. Moving now to the third type of arrangement that we are putting into place, land transportation. At the same time, we are engaging land transportation options to bring Canadians to neighboring airports, offering more commercial options. Moving now to Qatar. In Qatar, 237 Canadians have requested assistance in leaving out of 9,342 registered Canadians. Airspace in Qatar is closed, and there are currently no options to fly in or out. Qatar Airlines is arranging bus transportation for 200 Canadians with existing tickets to an airport in Saudi Arabia for a flight out from there. We are engaging ground transportation for other Canadians also wishing to leave quickly. I do want to point out that any ground transportation carries risk. Nous organisons aussi du transport terrestre pour d'autres Canadiens qui souhaitent quitter rapidement. Je tiens toutefois à souligner que tout déplacement par voie terrestre comporte des risques. I understand that being in a building such as a hotel while missiles are flying overhead is terrifying. It is, however, often the safer option. While we have no indication of roads being targeted by Iranian missiles, when they are intercepted overhead, debris can fall on the road below. Canadians should, no matter which country they are in, only travel when it is safe to do so and follow local advice. Turning now to Lebanon. In Lebanon, approximately 164 Canadians have asked for assistance in departing, out of over 23,000 people who have registered with our ROCA system. As mentioned, 75 people were on a commercial flight this morning using seats that were set aside for Canadians to reserve themselves. 200 more such seats are available over the course of the next 3 days. Turning now to Israel. 93 Canadians have requested assistance in departing out of over 6,000 Canadians who have registered with our ROCA system. Airspace there remains closed and flights are not an option for the moment. The government of Israel is operating a bus service to Egypt where passengers can arrange onward travel to airports that are open and operating normally. This service is working well and Canadians are being provided with the details so that they can avail themselves of it. L'espace aérien demeure fermé pour le moment et les vols ne sont pas une option. Le gouvernement d'Israël offre un service d'autobus vers l'Égypte et les passagers peuvent organiser la suite de leur voyage vers des aéroports qui sont ouverts et fonctionnent normalement. Turning now and finally to Iran. Of the almost 3,000 Canadians in Iran who have registered, 74 have requested assistance in leaving. Unfortunately, we have no ability to arrange ground transportation in Iran as we do not have diplomatic relations with Iran, and we have declared the IRGC as a terrorist entity under Canadian law. We have, however, stationed additional consular officials in neighboring countries, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Israel, Jordan, Turkey, and Turkmenistan, who can meet Canadians who cross the border and assist them with visa requirements and with arranging onward travel. Please only attempt to drive to the border when it is safe to do so. The situation throughout the region remains volatile and unpredictable. That is why we have a team here at GAC working 24/7 to provide updates to Canadians who have registered with our ROCA system. We strongly encourage Canadians abroad to continue registering with the ROCA system to receive up-to-date information rapidly. La situation dans toute la région demeure instable et fluide. C'est pourquoi nous avons une équipe ici à Affaires mondiales Canada qui travaille 24 heures sur 24 pour fournir des mises à jour aux personnes inscrites. Canadians requiring assistance can contact the 24/7 Emergency Watch and Response Center at 613-996-8885 or sos@international.gc.ca. I have also remained in close contact with my counterparts across the Middle East, the Gulf region, and our partners in the G7 to help advance diplomatic efforts aimed at de-escalation and stability. About 2 hours ago, I concluded a call with my counterparts in Australia and the United Kingdom, for example, where we discussed the current situation, the necessary response, and most importantly, how to cooperate to ensure that we will work together to get our respective citizens out of harm's way. Specifically, we have agreed to assist one another in terms of extending access capacity on our respective travel arrangements to citizens of our countries. We will continue to provide updates as the situation evolves. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.
On va commencer la conférence de presse maintenant. On a seulement de 10 minutes. Hi, everyone. If you could please state your name and outlet. We've got 10 minutes. We'll do one question, one follow-up. We'll start with the folks in the room, and then we'll move to people online. Thank you.
Bonjour, Madame Anand, Valérie Gamache de Radio-Canada. J'aimerais vous entendre davantage sur les vols nolisés dont vous avez parlé, les charters. Ces vols partent d'où? Je comprends des Émirats arabes unis, mais ils sont au nombre de combien? Quels avions? Est-ce que ce sont des avions militaires? Est-ce que ce sont des Polaris? C'est plus détaillé un peu plus.
Maintenant, nous faisons le travail nécessaire avec les contrats de s'assurer qu'il y avait des vols pour nos citoyens et on va avoir les vols comme ça dans les prochains jours, à peu près 72 heures, mais les contrats doivent être en place et ça c'est le travail maintenant que nous faisons. En même temps, nous avons une autre option pour les citoyens avec les blocked bookings. Donc, il y a deux options. Il y aura deux options aussi pour les Canadiens. Donc, nous travaillons très fort sur les options comme ça. Et s'il y a une option sécuritaire sur le terrain, nous allons le proviser aussi.
Yeah. If you can just repeat in English, please.
The key upshot of this update is that we have three specific options that we are sourcing for Canadians. One is chartered flights. 2 is blocked bookings. 3 is land transportation. The availability of those options will largely depend on the particular country. For example, if airspace is open or not, and for example, if we are able to travel or advise travel over land. And so I provided details as to how we are proceeding in each specific country. You mentioned the UAE, and in that particular country, we are looking at blocked bookings. We are looking at chartered flights within the next 72 hours or so, and we are looking at ground transportation if it is safe to do so.
Et quand vous parlez de 2000 ressortissants canadiens, est-ce que vous êtes capable de leur dire aujourd'hui, par exemple, en fin de semaine, on sera capable de vous sortir de là? Avez-vous une sorte de timeline, un échéancier, là?
Oui, je l'ai dit déjà que pendant le lundi et mardi et aussi pour le reste du semaine, nous continuons d'offrir les options pour les Canadiens et Canadiennes qui veulent quitter la région. Premièrement, nous avons déjà mis en œuvre une option avec les vols qui opèrent maintenant, ça c'est les block bookings, mais aussi on va continuer de s'assurer qu'il y aura des vols chartres, de chartered flights pour les Canadiens et Canadiennes. Et troisièmement, s'il y a des options sur le terrain, par exemple de Qatar à l'Arabie saoudite, ça va être une option aussi. Mais je voudrais souligner que la situation est très volatile et très fluide. Ça veut dire qu'il y a des missiles, des attaques dans l'espace aérien. Donc, notre conseil est très important et ça, c'est le message par notre système, avec les courriels, par exemple, de tout ce qui ont enregistré avec notre système. Mais je voudrais continuer d'offrir des mises à jour comme ça chaque jour, peut-être sur le média social ou en personne, mais nous travaillons 24 par 7 jours par semaine sur ça parce que c'est très important d'être ici pour les Canadiens, Canadiennes. Ça, c'est la raison pour laquelle j'ai retourné ici au Canada et je suis pas avec le Premier ministre en Australie parce que on doit travailler ici dans le centre ici avec les nécessités et les nécessités pour les Canadiens, Canadiennes.
Merci.
Judy Trin with CTV News. Minister Anand, you mentioned that Canada is working with other countries trying to coordinate. Can you give me a sense of how that works? Will other countries free up seats? Will we free up seats? Mm-hmm. And we hear that other nations are able to get their citizens out of Oman, but we are not able to do so. Why is that?
So right now, in answer to the first part of your question, my specific conversations with the foreign ministers of Australia and the United Kingdom are based on this reciprocal offer that we have to each other to assist citizens with travel arrangements if there is space on their flights or their other forms of transportation. And this, in fact, is reciprocal work that we put in place routinely with other like-minded countries and is quite commonplace. So, in other words, the way it works is if there is space on their planes and there are Canadians who want to leave the region, then they will offer that space up and we will do the same. So, for example, in the flight that we had block booked today, leaving from Beirut, we block booked 75 seats for Canadians. Not all of them were filled by Canadians because we didn't have the full complement who wanted to leave at the time, and so we were able to offer those seats up, and those countries are doing the exact same thing with us.
You mentioned that it is safer in a hotel than on the roads, and that you have not had any indication that the Iranians are bombing roads. Do you have any assurances from the U.S. or Israel that they are also not bombing roads, in particular since in Iran many people are trying to flee via cars?
To be clear, The situation is volatile and unpredictable, and the assurances that you're referring to in your question are not ones that we are utilizing to guide any of this advice. The advice is to register with the ROCA system so that we can tailor the advice to the particular country in which Canadians are finding themselves. This situation is changing by the hour. It's extremely volatile, and as you can see from the map behind me, it covers a vast geographical region. And so again, sheltering in place is the general advice across the board. And if Canadians wish to leave, we are putting in place options for them to do so. And those options are tailored to the particular country and are based to some extent on whether that country has open airspace by which flights can leave the region. Thank you.
Hi, Minister. Jillian Piper with Global News. You mentioned that the government booked 75 seats, blocked them off, but they weren't all filled by Canadians. How many of those seats were filled by Canadians?
I'll have to get back to you with the exact number. The vast majority of those were taken by Canadians. As I said, in Lebanon itself, we have had a number of Canadians indicating that they do want to leave the region. I'm just going to get the numbers for you again in terms of Lebanon. So 164 Canadians have asked for assistance in departing out of 23,728 people who have registered with our ROCA system in Lebanon. 75 people were on a commercial flight. Most of those people were Canadians. 200 more seats are available over the course of the next 3 days. In other words, we are making sure that all Canadians who wish to leave have an option to do so and can do so on a cost recovery basis.
Do you have any assurances from allies that airspace will remain open in countries where you're considering chartered flights or where you're considering booking block seats?
So, as I said, the situation is volatile and is changing by the hour. And in some countries, the airspace is open. In others, it is partially open. And in still others, it is fully closed. And so our ROCA system is tailoring the advice to the particular viability of the airspace in the country under discussion. Again, this underlines the importance of the ROCA system and registering. We've seen an increase in our ROCA numbers, the reason being that the advice is tailored to specific countries and is changing frequently.
Good evening, Minister. Sam Forster, Canadian Affairs. On February 20th, your Parliamentary Secretary, Rob Oliphant, stated, and I'll quote, "Minister Anand has been very clear that we do not support an American strike, very clear, and that is the Canadian position. We do not believe in non-UN sanctioned military action. We don't do that." On February 28th, the day that this military incursion began, Prime Minister Carney released a statement broadly in support of the strikes. Was Mr. Oliphant correct on February 20th when he made those remarks? And if so, how do you explain that reversal?
I was not aware that he made those remarks, and our position was confirmed by Prime Minister Carney in his remarks yesterday from Australia, as well as in the statement that he issued on Saturday and again yesterday.
When was the last time you spoke with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and can you share anything about those conversations?
I was in Mumbai. It was 3:30 a.m. Mumbai time. A G7 phone call occurred, and Secretary Rubio and my other G7 counterparts were on the line.
Est-ce que c'est possible de répondre en français sur le moment de votre dernière conversation avec Marco Rubio?
C'était à ce temps-là à Mumbai quand j'étais là.
One last question.
Oops, sorry. Alessia Pasifini with the Canadian Press. There are Canadians in the Middle East who are desperate for Canada to be doing more. Your officials say that it's more efficient to use commercial options, but our allies are sending chartered planes. Why can they do this, but we can't?
Actually, I don't accept the frame of your question at all. We have 2,035 Canadians who have requested assistance out of 106,000 Canadians who have registered. In each of the countries in which Canadians are requesting help, we are providing chartered flights, block booking of seats on commercial airlines, or exploring land transportation. We've been at this for days to ensure that we have options in place for Canadians. We are also working with our allies to ensure that there's this reciprocal arrangement between countries. In addition, I have been working with a number of my counterparts in Middle East and Gulf countries to ensure that if Canadians wish to transfer over land, that our surge officials from Global Affairs who are in place in those countries will be able to assist with the land crossings, like in Turkmenistan and Azerbaijan and Armenia and Turkey. And I've spoken with each of the foreign ministers in those countries to ensure that they will allow our GAC officials to be in country and to help Canadians. Finally, in addition to the first two items I mentioned, flights, chartered and block bookings, as well as land transportation, ensuring assistance at borders by having surged GAC support in place, I will also point to my continued conversations with my counterparts in the Gulf region and the Middle East, where I am specifically requesting that Canadians can leave their countries by any means possible. I spoke with the Foreign Minister of Oman, for example, yesterday regarding Oman airspace. I've also been in contact with my counterpart from the UAE on the same question. So the key point and the summary of my answer is that we have a number of avenues that we are working hard to ensure that those 2,035 Canadians can indeed leave the region. Thank you for your question.
All the time we have for today. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.